Hello and welcome to episode 247 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. On the show today, my good friend and co-host Maz will be back to discuss more of the announcements from this summer's Destination D23 event. A few weeks ago, we talked about the announcements that revolved around the theme parks. Today, we will focus on the announcements having to do with movies. We have a lot of opinions on the way Disney is handling its new releases, and I think you will enjoy hearing them. A little theme park news before we get started. Earlier this week, Disney announced that a new version of Soarin' will be coming to Epcot and Disney's California Adventure in honor of the 250th anniversary of the United States. The announcement came in the form of a video featuring Patrick Warburton, who is the chief flight attendant in the Soarin' pre-show video. Soarin' Across America will debut this upcoming summer at both parks. If you are listening to this on YouTube, drop a comment with some locations in the U.S. which you would like to see represented in the new show. Mount Rushmore, the Grand Canyon, the Mississippi River, whatever you think would work. On Monday, video was shared on Twitter that caught a drone show over the Disney Ranch in Santa Clarita, California. The section of the show that was shared online featured scenes from Aladdin, including a really cool rendering of the genie. It would be interesting to see if this was in preparation for the U.S. parks, or if it's a continuation of similar shows at the overseas parks. Of course, please take the time to make sure that you are subscribed to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel. We had a little bump last week after we had horror author Beth Castrodale on the show. Let's keep that momentum. It just takes 30 seconds and it is 100% free. On Monday, I aired my first vlog from my late September vacation to Walt Disney World. I'll be airing a new video from that trip every Monday through the end of November. As always, I would appreciate it if you would watch all of the videos on the channel, click the like button for all of them, and drop any positive comments that you would like. Once again, I'm planning on taking part in Vlogmas this December. I'll post a video, vlog, or podcast on the YouTube channel every day of the last month of 2025. We will have special videos from the parks, and I will even have some of our better podcast interviews in video form. Every one you watch will help us in the algorithm, so please check out everything we have going on the YouTube channel. Let's get things started with our main conversation. Thanks for being here, Maz.
Thanks for having me back.
All right, so we talked earlier about the Destination D23 announcements involving the theme parks, but we thought it would be fun to sit back and go over the movies that were announced at Destination D23 and see if Disney can kind of, I don't know if you'd agree with me, but break out of a slump that they've had with movies, especially in the last few years.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a little rough.
We're going to start with Hexed, which was announced for 2026, coming up next year. So this is going to be the new Disney animated film. So what's this one about?
So this one is about a boy and his mom who discover that his quirky, unique weirdness is actually trapped magic inside of him. And they're transported to a new world to explore, uncover this and everything it means.
So from what you've seen from the descriptions about this, I feel like when Disney does a new movie like this, whether it be Wish or whether it be Encanto, there has to be something. Luca is another example. There has to be something that's going to bring people into the movie, to get people to get off their backsides and go to the theater, or even just watch it on streaming. I feel like with Encanto, it had that Lin-Manuel Miranda tie-in, so that got people interested in it, and I think that the animation looked cooler. They could tell that there was something going on there. But I feel like with some of the recent Disney movies, whether they're good, whether they're just okay, what they're not doing is giving people an excuse to feel like they have to go see it. It used to be the new Disney animated movie was must see for families. Do you think they're going to be able to do that with Hexed?
Ugh, it's hard to say right now because we know so little about it. And I'm hoping that as it gets closer, we get some more information and a hook that makes it seem like a unique story. Because right now, for me, like, I'm an Owl House fan. And to me, this kind of feels like the Owl House repackaged and put in a movie form. Which, I mean, I loved the series, so potentially very cool.
So if somebody doesn't know Owl House, why don't you just give a quick description of Owl House?
Yeah, so the Owl House is about a girl who is weird and kind of an outcast. And then she stumbles into another dimension that's full of magic and is like learning how to use magic and that, your uniqueness is your strength and make friends and all that stuff. Um, at, at one point, minor spoiler, so skip maybe 10 seconds if you haven't seen it and you care about that. But at one point, her mom joins her in the magic world and they're figuring things out together. So there are similarities, which could be very cool because, like I said, I really enjoyed that series and I think it ended prematurely. But I would like to know what the hook is going to be for this. What is it that's going to make this, like you said, that must see thing that's going to get people to the theaters instead of just waiting 6 weeks to watch it on Disney Plus?
And I think a concern for Disney lately with some of these movies is that people aren't even watching them once they get to Disney Plus. It's not appointment theater going anymore. And, in the 90s when NBC had must see TV and they got you to think like when there's a new episode of these shows, you have to see them or you're going to be left out when you go to work on Friday, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that used to be what a new Disney movie was like, especially for kids. And I don't think that it is that way anymore. And it's going to be interesting to see if they can bring that back with something that's not already an established property, because that's where they've been struggling.
Yes. And I do think a lot of that has to do with their marketing. I think they're creating this cyclical problem where Disney is not confident in their new releases bringing in money when they're not attached to a series or a already existing remake of an animated movie. They're not confident in it, which leads to them not spending big marketing dollars to promote it, which leads to fewer people even knowing it exists, and therefore fewer people going to see it. And then they have these shows in the theater for 3 weeks tops. So if you have any sort of conflict, any sort of weekend plans where you're kind of busy, you can't go see it. And then you're out of luck. And then it reinforces itself because then they don't make a ton of money on it. So the next time they have something unique, they go, well, the last time it didn't work. And I mean, we just saw this happen with Elio, where that was a movie that was so catered to my unique interests. And I did not see a single commercial for it. And I watch a lot of Hulu. So I watch a lot of Hulu, I watch a lot of YouTube, I am seeing a lot of commercials. And not once did I see something promoting that movie.
I agree with you. I definitely think that this is an issue that Disney is having right now. They're so confident that they can make money on the franchises that work that they then spend the money on the franchises that work. And then that just, almost is confirmation bias. Like they set themselves up to prove the point that they wanted to prove in the first place, that they can only make money by recycling these current IP. So you said you have watched The Owl House and you really, really liked it, and you think that Hexed has a similar vibe to that. Are you thinking that this is like sort of like Zootopia is an allegory for racism? Do you think that this is an allegory for neurodivergence? It sort of sounds like that a little bit to me. Or am I just completely missing the boat here?
I mean, I would love for it to be. The Owl House definitely touches on it explicitly. Um, and I would love for Hex to like make a bold statement and be a bold allegory for that. I currently have less faith in Disney as a company making that statement right now or making any statement right now beyond just like, you know, life is fun, be nice. So, I mean, it's hard to say.
I definitely agree with you there. I would hope that it wouldn't be so controversial, but you know, what isn't nowadays, I guess. So anyway, speaking of Zootopia and Disney's reliance on just cranking out sequels and prequels and any type of rehash of successful movies they've had, Zootopia 2, they announced that Patrick Warburton, who of course is Patrick, your chief flight attendant on Soren. He's Joe Swanson on Family Guy. He was on that show Rules of Engagement, Seinfeld. I think there might have been a couple others, but he's obviously known for his deep voice. So, him getting into the Disney animated world, I think, was something that was almost an inevitability. And we have some other new characters, I think, that they announced. So, what are you thinking about what you've seen from Zootopia 2?
I'm excited. I really liked the first Zootopia. You know, I'm feeding into the problem here, or I'm like, oh, a sequel? Yeah, hit me with it. It seemed it was a good first movie. I am looking forward to seeing how they expand the universe. And I think, you know, we don't know much about these new characters, but they seem cool. You know, I'm excited to hear Patrick Warburton, I think, was Kronk way back when. So I am excited to hear him come back to this world.
That's true. He has done Disney in the past. It just feels like he is very much primed to be one of those, who's just in all of them, like
He
Josh
should be.
Gad or right.
Yeah, just let him do every movie from now on. Make him like Alan Tudyk and Josh Gad, and just put him in everything.
So I agree that the Zootopia world feels like it's a universe that should be able to be tapped for a lot of different things. Like we should be able to see, because it is such an expansive universe and we just saw a tiny tiny fraction of it in the first movie. But like you don't have faith in Disney to go out and do something controversial with Hexed. I wonder if they're going to like branch out that much on something like Zootopia 2, and we're not just going to get here's the formula, this is what worked the last time, because I felt like that was a complete story.
Hmm.
Whether it was the right way to tell the story, we can go into that detail. People will talk about that till the end of time, but it felt like it was a completed story. And now, are we just going to get a buddy cop movie? And I guess if they do it
Probably.
well, like a buddy cop movie would be fine if they do it the right way. But it feels like a movie that was trying to say something is now just going to be turned into another processed in the Disney machine type movie.
Yeah, I do definitely agree with that. And I think that they are absolutely possibly purposely going down that road to kind of be like, look at how non-controversial we are about everything. But I mean, I also feel like that issue aside, like I felt like Frozen was a complete story. I felt like Toy Story was a complete story. And now, granted, Toy Story I think has gone too far, but I thought Toy Story 2 and 3 were great additions to the Pixar catalog. So I do think there's a chance for it to still have a meaning for and like a meaningful story to tell or like a valid reason to exist, I guess. And I hope it delivers. I really do.
I think Frozen 2 did a better job of coming up with a story as an inevitable sequel to a movie that just exploded. Like, yes, Frozen was its own story in the first place. I do think they did a good enough job of coming up with something that felt like it was a story that needed to be told. But sometimes, like you said, with Toy Story, they're just cranking it out to sell merch and promote theme park lands. So, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, a new movie coming to Disney Plus. And your note, I love this one. They're still making these.
Yeah.
So this is obviously like this was later than my time. Like these were books for kids that came out after I was a kid. So I think this might be more in your generation. I don't even know if it's still a little later than you,
I was
but
on like the very cusp of it. It was definitely most popular with kids younger than me. Like I remember it being a big deal with kids I was babysitting. So like I'm very familiar with it because of that, where, they're very and I've read all I shouldn't say I've read all the books. I've read a lot of the books because of the kids I was around when it was super popular. But I feel like it's not that popular anymore.
to be fair though, it's just a Disney Plus.
Right. But it still feels like an interesting. I mean, obviously, they must expect it to make enough money for it to be worth them making it in the first place. It was just interesting to me to see it and be like, oh, wow, these still exist. They're still chugging them out.
I think that one thing we've realized as streaming has sort of settled into a different phase is you can only get away with being a storage system for old movies for so long. You have to at least be putting new things into the universe. So if using Disney Plus as a way to do a new Diary of a Wimpy Kid, it makes sense. A new Ice Age coming to theaters in 2027, and you have here, they're still making these. Now, this is one that wasn't originally Disney, right? Ice Age was
Right.
acquired by
Right.
Disney. And yeah, they're just going to try to milk that one more time because they have the IP. So let's see if it'll work, I guess.
Right. Absolutely. And I feel like, I'm clearly not the target audience for those at this point in time. But that was a very strong IP. So they've got to still have that hold on the market. It is interesting that it's still coming to theaters, and I'm interested to see, 2 years from now, how it does, or if it's one of those, it goes to the theater, doesn't do much, and then they're like, "Yep, right on Disney Plus."
So recently with Charlie Sheen, I know this is going to seem like a tangent, but Charlie Sheen has been doing a lot of interviews and promoting his documentary and his book lately. And I saw something where the people who made Bull Durham said that Charlie Sheen was originally the one they wanted to play the character of Nuke Lelouch. And they were talking about creating the movie Bull Durham and how it got made essentially because Kevin Costner was already signed to make the movie. And then he blew up all of a sudden. So they were able to go make the movie. He got famous. They threw some money at the people. They said, go make the movie. And the movie was out within a couple months. And it feels like the way we do things now, like, do we have to know there's an Ice Age movie coming out in February of 2027? Are we going to have movie theaters in February of 2027? Like, I know that the world's moving fast here, and I just feel like that's a long way in advance to be teasing a sequel movie. I don't know.
I agree.
Pixar's upcoming schedule. Hoppers in 2026. I think this one looked pretty good. What's the premise of this one again?
This is the one where the girl goes into the beaver, like her consciousness goes into a beaver and she has to do something to save something. Great description on my end.
No, that's
Absolutely dreadful. But it looks fun.
but that was probably the one sheet, right? They used to sell the movie. I don't know.
It looks really good.
Girl goes into a beaver. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of, this is my prediction, there are going to be a lot of jokes where they mess around with the double meaning of the word damn. That's my prediction. Toy Story 5, 2026. Toy Story 5.
We don't need this. There's no reason for this to exist.
Okay, Maz, I'm going to fight back with you for 1 second. Is it going to make $1 billion?
I mean, yes, that is the reason it exists. However, from an art standpoint, they've lost the plot. Like, from an actual understanding the story standpoint, they have absolutely lost the plot. Will people still go see it because it's a Toy Story movie and because kids love Forky, even though he deserves to like go down a garbage disposal? Yes.
So I've never been the biggest Toy Story fan. Like, this is an IP that hit. It came out in what, 95?
Mm-hmm.
So I was 15. I was out of that by that point. So this was never like the biggest thing for me. I can see that the movies were good and some of the voice acting obviously was great. The amount that this took over the parks, I would almost say that once Disney officially acquired Pixar, Toy Story ended up becoming what a lot of Disney people feared Star Wars would become when they acquired it. Like, it's just too much. I think Disney could almost do more Star Wars and stop with the Toy Story because they have just milked everything they could out of this, but then it's going to go make $1 billion.
Unfortunate.
I'm assuming this is Gato in 2027. Do we know anything about it?
We don't know much about it at all. I think we saw some key art with a cat.
Well, I would assume with Gato being Spanish for cat that would be what we would be looking at there. But okay, cat movie, that should be fun.
Cute.
Incredibles 3. Talk about going to the well a lot because Incredibles 1, perfect little movie, made sense. Incredibles 2, okay, all right, you stretched it a little bit, but I mean, I guess we're just never going to stop getting, because then we're going to talk about immediately after that, and of course, Incredibles 3 in 2028.
I know.
Coco 2 in 2028, as long as the government will still allow it. Like, Coco does not need a sequel.
No, this is like exactly what you were talking about a movie having a meaning, having a message, being a complete story. You don't need to go back and there was nothing left hanging, no threads that weren't connected. Like this was a complete perfect story. Honestly, one of Pixar's best. And I I mean, obviously they have an idea, but I just don't know where they're going to go from here.
You say obviously they have an idea, but it's 2028. Like, I don't know if that's obvious.
True.
I think Bob Iger wrote down on a piece of paper, you're releasing Coco 2 in 2028. Figure it out now.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of that at this point. As I do these episodes that I've been doing about once a month on Michael Eisner, and we have a tendency to give him more credit because, you know, the backup quarterback in a town is always the most popular player on the football team. And the previous CEO is always going to be the one that you look at and think was better. But I feel like this is not a mistake he would make. I feel like he
Yeah.
would be promoting the new ideas and trying to crank out more new ideas because I do think that's how you end up staying relevant. And
Mhm.
we are going to do an episode about Disney's $1 billion busts. And these are Disney movies that made $1 billion but had no cultural relevance whatsoever.
Yep.
And I feel like this is how you get stuck in that trap is you release Toy Story 5 just because you know it will make money. So you release it whether there's a story or not. And I would imagine there's an end to that well. That well goes dry eventually. It obviously hasn't for them yet, but you have to imagine that there's only so many times you can. I'll probably say this is weird that I did a whole episode on the Jimmy Kimmel thing and all that, and this is going to be the most controversial thing I've said. I think about this with Taylor Swift and all the variants that she has of all the
Oh.
different versions of her album. Like, there's going to be a time where that's not going to work anymore. And I'm
Mhm.
not criticizing anybody for, you know, you make your money, you spend it however you want. I've bought multiple copies of the same album in its first week in my life as well. But what I think is the more that you tap into that market just because it's there doesn't mean you have to hit it every time. So, Maz, I think this was a great way to lead into that conversation we were going to have anyway about the $1 billion busts because we can see Disney making some of the same mistakes, even though Bob Iger would say they're making $1 billion, so they're not mistakes. But thanks for being
Yep.
here.
Thanks for having me.
That conversation about $1 billion busts will air at some point in November. This has been episode 147 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. As always, we'll be back next week with another brand new episode of the show. I'll be joined by Jeff Gordon, who runs the social media platforms Gordon Grubs. In the past on our show, we have promoted his various fundraisers for different food banks in areas hit by natural disasters. Jeff has been to all of the international Disney theme parks, and we're going to talk about all of them in next week's conversation. Whether you want to know all about Paris's version of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad or the highly rated second gate in Japan called Tokyo Disney Sea, we will be covering it on the show. Here is a quick preview.
You know, if somebody doesn't speak English in Japan or Hong Kong or China, there's usually a lead, cast member that will come that does. They'll do their best, and especially now in our modern world with our phones and everything, uh, Google Translator like really works wonders, and it hasn't been an issue in any of the countries that I've been to. I try to learn the basics, like how much does this cost? Where's the restrooms? Like, just can you take my picture? Like I try to learn those basic phrases. Anything beyond that, I'm not that good at or not that proficient as some of the other languages I speak. But um, most people they're eager to help and greet, especially in a place like Disney, where the casts are always going above and beyond. So
Jeff is one of the truly great people in the Disney community, so you will not want to miss our talk next Thursday. Until then, have a great week.